And that's why when you got a tree down, you don't just go back from the tree. Go back on an angle, because that can happen a lot where they hang up and kick back. Didn't come back a lot, like 3 feet. But still, if you were standing there, that would kill you. It's the problem with these dense stands. You get a lot of hangers because I'm pretty good at felling them right where I want to. But sometimes there's just nowhere to put them, or they twist because some other thing in the trunk that you don't see, like a hinge that doesn't go, that you haven't cut properly, goes all the way through, can twist as it comes off. This is a dangerous one. Gonna have to get that pulled down before I bring Cali back in here. "55 growth rings in this." Which one was that? The balsam? No, the white spruce. A 55-year-old white spruce, and it's about 14 inches at breast height. And then that balsam fir, it's probably around the same age, but it's only maybe 10 inches at breast height. So I'm guessing that's pretty close to what I predicted about the age of this section of the forest. Seems like the older ones, or the middle-sized ones, like the pines, are between 65 and 70 years old. Like I said, this is 55. I imagine there's majority of them are going to be in that range. I'm assuming by the looks of this forest that it was probably clear cut about 70 years ago. 65, 70 years ago. It wasn't 100% clear cut because some of these trees are definitely older than that. Some of these pines, especially the big branchy ones, they were either damaged when the rest of the forest was cut down and it caused them to lose their leader and start branching, or they just had a lot of room because there's nothing else around them so that they could just grow out and take up all the sunlight in as big a canopy as possible. I'm not sure. Probably a combination of those things. This section, like I said, it's pretty level and it's sandy, so I think probably not only was it clear cut, maybe this was lived on at some point, and maybe that was back in the 1800s, not in the 1900s. Although who knows? I can't find much information on the area, specifically this area. I guess the reason that this area has been mostly dominated by conifers is it seems to be really sandy. Dug a couple of holes last year, and I could just keep digging. It was practically pure sand, a little bit of gravel in it. I'm hoping that's the case. The cabin's just up through there. I'm hoping that's the case in there too, so that I can build a full foundation or a full basement. I think that probably is the case. Just beyond this section of forest, and then back further and out to the sides, it rises up into more uplands, and then the bedrock's more exposed there, and the soils are a combination of really thin to nothing, like bedrock exposed, gullies and high outcroppings, and then deep pockets where the sugar maples are growing. So I'm going to mainly be getting the pines. So I've cut several trees down today: pine, spruce, and balsam fir. I'm probably going to end up taking a couple of aspen down today as well, and I think that's going to be all that all the logs that I built, or I harvest for all of the buildings: the log cabin, the kitchen, the whatever, sauna, things like that. It will be a combination of materials. I'll try to keep as much of one species together as possible, and then even within a building, when I do change species, I'll try to keep the same course at the same level. So let's say course number 3, I go with aspen. to get it higher off the ground because it's less rot resistant. Maybe at that point I go 4 logs all around the cabin so that they shrink at the same rate. I am concerned about starting the cabin before these things are seasoned enough. So I have to use techniques that accommodate the shrinkage that's going to occur on these green logs. Also would like to let them lighten up a lot. They could lose 1/3 of their weight if I let them dry longer, but I'm not going to have that luxury this time. Anyway, it's a start. Second week of January, like I said, I was going to, when I said I was going to cut them down, I'm going to try to get at least all the cabin logs cut today and maybe tomorrow. Now, one of the things I was thinking about, I read a quote recently, I'm paraphrasing, don't quote me on this exactly, but the author said something like planting a tree in a forest is akin to sprinkling water on the ocean to keep it dry, keep it wet. That's the reality in a forest like this. It reseeds itself as fast as you can possibly take trees from it. There's probably thousands of seedlings right at my feet, right in this area. And now that there's some canopy open, the sun can come down through here and some of these will grow. More likely than not, it's a nice healthy straight pine there, white pine there, balsam fir and birch. The birch will start dying off soon too because it's getting older. They don't live that long. Now these pines will probably grow up though and take the place and be happy to get that canopy where they can start gathering more sunlight up there. So unlikely any of these down here will outcompete those, but who knows? Never know what's going to happen in a forest. These heavy snows and kind of in between weather like this where we have freezing rain, that snow gets really heavy on the branches. You get a lot of breakage and trees falling over, especially if you get a strong wind following this. That's why you see a lot of dead trees in the forest. That and disease and bug, insect infestations. So it's interesting. I love spending time in a forest like this. I wish everybody could get in a forest. The smell alone, like just walking through here and brushing up against the trees and cutting them, not just the smell of the wood, but the terpenes or whatever in the air from all these conifers. I can't believe how uplifting it is and how much healthier I feel when I am walking through this type of forest. So if you get an opportunity, I really recommend that you do that. Go for a walk in the forest bathing as they call it. You know, speaking of that, and speaking of me not really being able to reseed this forest, the only thing I can do, the thing that I want to do and am doing, is just replanting different species instead of replacing them with the species that I'm removing. These are great for commercial purposes, these types of softwood logs or trees, because you get good lumber for building materials for building houses. But you know, it has a purpose for wildlife as well, especially these shelter belts is basically what this is, where the animals can winter in here. But there's way more food in a deciduous forest, or the most amount of food and diversity is in the forest edges. So all along that creek bed, the old beaver meadow, up through the highlands, you get these rocky outcrops on the edge of those have mixed species, and you get more berries and nuts and stuff like that. So my plan is to replace all the trees on the property itself, on my properties, with fruit and nut producing trees and bushes. I mentioned in a previous video all the trees I've got on order and all the trees I planted last year. So for this year, 2021, I'm planting blueberry bushes, raspberries, blackberries, cranberries, I forget what other kind of berries, but hazelnuts, beaked hazelnut, which is native to this area. I've got 3 different kinds of oaks that I'm going to transplant in openings to increase the nut production in here. I've got a hickory, which I doubt will grow in this area, so kind of beyond the range, too north and too extreme for them. And a bunch of apple trees, pear trees, cherry trees. We have sour cherries here, so pin cherries and choke cherries grow naturally. And typically you can see them all throughout the property. They kind of grow up in the fringe areas, or when a tree falls down, they're one of the pioneer species that'll come up first. There's a bunch of them here, probably back from then. They probably started off when this was clear cut or selectively cut. All the openings probably got probably cherries grew up in those first, and birches and some aspens. So those areas are being taken over, so a lot of those cherries are starting to die. But sour cherries, so pin cherry, choke cherry, I'll nurture those trees a little bit, give them a little bit more light. And then I've got regular eating cherries, like we have black cherry too. That's not something we eat, but like Bing cherries or whatever I'm going to grow. Not peaches, nectarines and plums. So I'm going to not only do that at the cabin itself, but I'm trying to increase the wildlife that are able to use this property. And that means spreading the new fruit trees and stuff kind of throughout the property. And I'm also aware that those species, a lot of them aren't native. I'm trying to use as many native as possible, but this is already a changed landscape, a landscape that's been changed by the hand of man. So it's sort of artificial to some extent. So introducing some species like that won't dominate, won't take over the forest, I think is beneficial. And that just, again, with the reality that human habitation here, with me needing food, I'd rather grow it here than import it from elsewhere. I think it's way more sustainable for me to grow that food here on the property, even if it's not native, rather than ship it in from California, let's say.